Alright guys, welcome to the next video, which is distribution. And like I said in the previous video, I want you to more so understand what's happening in the range through logic, not just through technicals, right? Because that then puts you in a mindset where you're trying to understand why it's happening, not just what is happening, right? So distribution is essentially the inverse of accumulation. Not exactly, just because I see different attributes in accumulation in comparison to distribution. Like just a simple example is like the selling climax and the buying climax. They don't really, like how I said, selling climax has like usually the last spike in volume, the peak in volume. You don't really see that as much in buying climax. I don't know if it's just me or just the schematics I'm looking at, but more so I still want you to understand what's happening in volume and what's happening with the shift and what's happening in phase C and D, because that's going to be the main determinant, right? So back to distribution, this is the inverse of accumulation, whereas it's not supply to demand, it's demand to supply, right? So like I said, learn this stuff. It's not the end of the world if you don't know what each is, but it's good to know what everything is and what's going on, because you want to master this stuff. You don't want to just follow it. So this time I only have two charts, which is a Schem 1 and a Schem 2. And the reason why I did 3 in the first one is just because I wanted to show you an M1 schematic, a M30 schematic, and a monthly schematic, which means a scalping intraday, then an intraday to daily schematic, and then a monthly schematic, which shows you that this can happen on any single time frame, right? Like I said, price knows no time, time knows no price. So you should not be looking for schematics in certain time frames, right? Because I know somebody is going to want to ask me that. So there's your answer. Schematics happen on all time frames, not just your quote unquote magical time frame, right? And I say that very sarcastically. So let's get to the first schematic. This is a Schem 1 on UJ, right? Intraday to daily, right? So we see, right, buying climax, right? Automatic rally, right? As you can see here. But notice the buying climax didn't really have that peak in volume. Like I said, the selling climax has the peak in volume. But here, right, we see structure start to slow down in the manner of a buying climax and automatic rally. You see price start to struggle, as well as you see price not really give anything, right? Even here you see bullish volume come in, but nothing happens. So, and if anything, this is a quote unquote sign of weakness, right? Just because of the logic, right? You're seeing a ton of bullish volume, but you're not seeing any movement, right? And then even when you do see the secondary test happen, right, you don't see bullish volume supporting the move. So as you can see, it's just a quick in and out, right? So now this is now still considered a higher low, higher low, higher low. So structure is still to the upside. And then that's why you see the up thrust take out previous liquidity in the form of the secondary test and the buying climax. So your up thrust, right, just like we said before, it's no supporting volume. If anything, right here, as you can see, it's diminishing, right? I should have pointed that out, my bad, right? But so this is diminishing, right? And then after that, you get an intraday BOS, which is now considered your SOW. SOW equals intraday BOS, right? Remember that, right? But usually the SOW is post ST, which is here. So it should take out sell liquidity and then buy liquidity. But like I said, we have to adapt. Not every schematic is going to be the same. If not, everybody would be making millions off of this, right? So now we see that last rally to the upside, and notice that as we see that higher high being made, the volume is slowly diminishing, right? Bullish volume is diminishing, right? Even at the UTAD, you see no volume existed here, right? So like I said, no volume supporting a move creates instability, and that's what causes the reaction to the downside. And based off of the logic, this is now your phase C UTAD, right? So then you see UTAD test, pull back, fill inefficiency here, as you can see from this wick here, right? So now the last rally, still no volume existent, right? Still considered diminishment of volume, but now we can start even potentially looking for entries here. This is more aggressive, so it's not really it will be the best entry, but it's not really the safest, right? So after that first LPSY is formed, now that's an intraday break of structure. So now we have a UTAD, we have a higher low, a lower high, I'm sorry, right? Followed by a break of a low, right? This is our second SOW, right? We then create one last pullback, fill 50% of inefficiency there, right? And as soon as that happens, we just die, right? And as you can see, right, post UTAD, that's when you see the bearish volume slowly come in, creep in, and ascend, right? So that's what's happening, right? Diminishment, shift, ascending, right? Demand, shift, supply, right? So I don't like calling it like demand and supply, just because I personally believe there's a lot of stuff that talks about supply and demand, and anything outside of Wyckoff, in my opinion, is just straight BS. So I just don't like calling it that. I don't even like calling it anything. I just know what's going on. So as you can see, post final LPSY, right, SOW, and then now this is your full break of structure, and that is now your full-on downtrend starting. All right, so that's a schem 1. This is now your schem 2, right? AUDUSD 45-minute, and this is actually an interesting one. I'm gonna show you guys something cool about the schematic here, right? So as we can see, preliminary supply, buying climax, no supporting volume, no peak in volume, like I said, the setting climax likes to do, right? So then we come back down, right? Create our automatic rally, essentially inefficiency here, covers that, goes up, takes out previous buy liquidity in the upthrust, right? But notice the upthrust is not having any bullish volume, right? Like it says here, bullish volume is not existent, right? But price is continuing to cause that higher high, so that's create instability keyword, right? So post upthrust, right, we now have that intraday break of structure. So now it's either we're going to create the UTAD, or we're going to reject and potentially use this as a sponsored candle, right? Which is exactly what happened, right? LPSY formed in phase C, right? And then that's when you see your second SOW, LPSY, small pullback here, then the full break of structure here, and then the last LPSY before you finally fall. And what you really want to understand here is just what's going on. Look at how everything is so basically smooth. It's following to the T, because we're being patient and we're not just trying to guess each high, right? So as you can see, instability, no bullish volume present, and then slowly the bearish volume starts creeping up, right? High volume, breaks structure. Now I'm assuming that we're gonna see downside, and that's exactly what happens, blah blah blah. And the cool thing about this schematic, let me show you guys. This was back in the 30th of January of 2018. So I want you guys to look at this. Just the true power of a schematic. All right, so AUDUSD, 30-minute. Now we're going to go all the way to January of 2018. If it lets me. Okay, cool. We're going to have to scroll through all this. Keep going. All right, cool. So this is where the schematic happened. That's the schematic there. And now I want you guys to analyze what's going on. Look at this. This is where the schematic happened. And that went for a total of, to the bottom of the wick, actually, all right, the blue square is right there. And notice the potential of that schematic if you're willing to position trade. 2,500 pips, no drawdown, right? That is your influencer bias. That just happened. Failed to create a high, right? We're consistently making higher highs, higher lows here. Distribution schematic, failed to break previous high. No, that created the rollover, right? So just now you see the power of a schematic. It can literally, it can change your account size massively if you play them correctly, right? So it's not just about understanding the schematic, it's also about understanding the entry, which is why we spoke on entries beforehand in the inefficiency videos, the volume videos, the SC video. So yeah, guys, now you see the potential. And so the next video now is going to be talking about reaccumulation and understanding differences, etc., etc., etc.